Well, good evening. We're going to do the video as our first post this week and see if we can spark a little bit of conversation for the final week that we have here in this psychology class. Uh, the discussion this week has got all kinds of stuff about different practices and policies going on. And the first question asks, you know, give an example of what we would, how I would feel or what you feel was an effective and successful cooperative group experience. Probably the best thing is would be like maybe a sporting team. I know I coach my daughter's fourth grade basketball team, and I've talked about that before in different classes. Some of the other ones will understand where I'm going because I know Andrew actually coaches basketball as well, and had dealt with some similar struggles. But I think that the one thing here is to learn to understand that we are all part of the same team. Uh, the girls, they started out as you got the one girl that's probably better than most when they start out. And as the time progresses, the rest of the team actually catches up because the new girl, in a sense, is kind of left behind. It's sort of, I guess you could almost go with the national policy for education right now is, the no student left behind. And that's kind of how the team progressed into that cooperative group. By the end of the season, we were actually playing as a team and able to. We won one game, but we were actually able to participate together. Knew each other was on the floor, and kind of got along and made it work that way. And as a church and as a you know not necessarily a denominational building that people congregate in, but yet the church, the God's church, Christ's church, I think that should be the most effective and successful cooperation we ever have. But it seems like we have multiple churches in the same town that don't even get along with each other, don't communicate with each other. Heaven forbid they work on projects together to try and, improve the community. And I know this fall, my wife and I were actually with our outreach, we're trying to put together a Harvest Fest party that would basically incorporate all of the churches, that want to help us and work together and kind of put this project together, for a community outreach event. But I think that, as a church, I don't know if that's successful. I would say it probably isn't. And as I look at it, that should be the one thing that we should all strive for is to just, remain or to put together our unity as brothers and sisters in Christ to try and strengthen that to, it's easier to fight when you got 50 people on each side than it is to go in alone. So I think that that's what we need to work toward. And as we get through this class, I mean, that's kind of some of the stuff you look at is how the church itself is actually lacking in many of these aspects. The next question was talking about being a facilitator, and I know that's somewhat, I guess Catherine could probably answer this question a lot better than I could, but for me, it's been very difficult. Sometimes, as a facilitator, basically all you're trying to do is spark the conversation and get the rest of the group to take on, to get organized and get involved in the discussion. I know I led a marriage group on through a class that was based on the song movie, and it was actually 8 couples that come together to try and just facilitate that in that type of setting where people are uncomfortable, they're trying to be open, you're trying to kind of spur them to be open and honest and let out feelings and emotions that typically they may not let out in front of people that aren't considered very close friends. But as we struggled through the 10 or 12 weeks, it actually got to the point where people were laughing and they were able to talk about things that typically they wouldn't have been. And I think the idea of being a facilitator, that's what it comes down to. And I think that that's, we need to be more of a facilitator in a lot of things. Is we're being, being a teacher versus a facilitator. Teachers, I mean, that's what we are. We should be teaching people. But as we go, it's kind of the, you need to learn by mistake kind of idea that, unless we allow people to take on some new ideas, take on some new challenges, they're never going to improve their status or get farther above than where they are right now because they always feel that, as the leader, you're always there to, kind of cut or take them by the hand and lead them through whatever situation they're going through. But as the facilitator, it's more about kind of stepping back and letting them take on the challenge head on, face to face, and see what kind of result that they come up with. And also, I know I do a Saturday morning Bible study with 10 or 12, 15 guys, and somehow I got elected as one of the facilitators. There's 2 or 3 of us that kind of take turns, and I know that it's difficult because sometimes everyone's got a different interpretation of the Bible, and I don't want my interpretation to be the only thing we go with. I want other people to give their ideas and submit their feelings of what the Spirit's told them when they've read through the passages and stuff like that. So I think allowing people to be more vocal is probably our biggest tool as a leader, to build the future, because without the next group, where do we go? I know that basically they talk about the church, that if we miss one, we're one group away from extinction. And basically I think that's how we are as a leader as well, that we can be the best leader in the world, but eventually we won't be here. We have to be able to build our next leaders and our next people to lead the fight, whether that be for Christ or how they want to do it. But we have to build that next team. But I think the idea that best actually suits this is when we go into the total quality management, the TQM. Basically, this is taking an idea and actually coming up with a plan, making sure everyone knows the plan, enforcing the plan, and following the plan as best as can be to get the results that are anticipated or expected. Obviously, sometimes plans just have to be changed and deviated because maybe it might be a situation you never encountered, never even considered being possible, but yet you are faced with that situation. So the idea of how to respond to that is included in that, but yet, like I said, the whole point of total quality is basically the word, the big part. Sorry about that. The big part is the word total. And I think that means total involvement. Everyone has to be on the same page. A lot of times we think, well, we're in the same book, we're okay. No. This aspect is actually being on the same page, knowing who's doing what, who's responsible for what, and making sure those results are produced. So when it comes down to it, you have to put together a team, a good team. Obviously, like a basketball team, you want somebody that can handle the ball. You want somebody that can shoot the ball. You want somebody that can rebound, somebody with some height. That's to put together your team. You're not going to go out and put together an NBA team of, 5'4", guys to run across trying to play guys the size of LeBron James. I'm not saying that they can't compete. They don't have the same skill set and wouldn't be able to win. But over the course of time, the size difference and all that stuff is going to wear on them. So, in order to put together a good team, you first got to have a leader. Obviously, a leader that is willing to lead, willing to think outside the boat. As Peter did. We need to step outside the boat sometimes and kind of look at it from a different perspective. But, we need to think outside the box, and then develop a group that is willing and able to, if an issue arises, bring that issue to hand. Don't sit back and watch things go wrong just because, you have fear of the leader, maybe condemnation, however you want to look at it. But you have to have a team that's basically willing to speak up when things go wrong, or identify possible scenarios that could or could create problems. So many things that could possibly be part of the team, but like I said, it's all about the leader. The leader has to be able to perform. And it doesn't need to be one of those things that, like, when I grew up, it was do as I say, not as I do. You have to lead by example, and that's the way you get people to follow. If you're not willing to go in the trenches, then why would you expect your people to go in the trenches? As a military, all the military guys in here, you may not see your superiors go in the trenches now, but I'm sure they've been through that aspect to get to what the position that they are now. So, been a wonderful class. Best one of the course so far. Kind of hate to see this one end, but congrats on getting through it, and we'll try this again later. Thanks.